Hello guys, this is the-epiphany. In today's video I'm going to be explaining to you how Transcenders Runes work. That includes how to get Transcenders Runes. There are two ways to do it, by the market or by crafting. And also rules you need to know when using Transcenders Runes. And the rune limits when using Transcenders Runes. And in order to explain that, I am going to reference a particular person named Raden, who is a YouTuber on the server Elizali. He makes French videos of maging. He's a very nice guy. I've seen a lot of his videos before. A link to his channel will be in the description box below. He made this chart here, which is in French, and it explains the rune limits of Transcenders Runes. And a lot of people have seen this already. It's been pinned in the Echo Discord in the Maging Screenshots channel. However, it is in French, and a lot of people who have seen this have told me that they don't understand it because, you know, a lot of people, you know, that basically are English players, which is why I've decided to make my own chart. Well, it's not really my own, it's just using Raden's chart and editing it to make it in English. And I'm going to be explaining how these limits work later on. And after I'm finished recording this video, I'm also going to be posting this English version of the Transcenders Runes limits into the Echo Discord, the Maging Screenshots, and I'll be pinning that as well. Okay, so the first part of the video will be explaining to you how to get Transcenders Runes. And in order to do that, there are two ways. The first way is just to buy it from the market, specifically the rune market. And you notice that there are a lot of types of Transcenders Runes here. Let's just focus on the Vitality one for a sec. So there are three types of runes. We have, let's say, Vitality Rune, and the thing about all Transcenders Runes is that they have the word Tra in it, which stands for Transcendence, so that's how you know it's a Transcenders Rune. The category is also Transcenders Rune, and it's different from the standard Ra rune because the standard Ra rune is a Smith magic rune, not a Transcenders Rune. Yeah, as you can see, you know, Smith magic rune here is 50 Vite, and the Transcenders Rune 100 Vite. And the second way of getting these is to craft it. All Transcenders Runes can be crafted using the standard Smith magic rune and a dream resource, which is an Astral rune, and that can be obtained in the Infinite Dreams or from the resource market. But before I go there, I want to focus your attention on the most expensive types of runes, which is the resistance runes. Specifically 2% fire, 2% earth, and so on. So let's say 2% earth here. 90% of the time it will be cheaper to craft the rune because buying it straight from the market is expensive. As you can see here, the 2% earth Transcenders Rune costs 5 million in the market, and to craft it you need a standard 1% earth rune and a legendary Astral rune. So let's head to the resource market now, and I'll show you where we can get these runes from. So the category for these Astral runes is just a dream resource. Dream resource, and there are different types of Astral runes here we can see, because there are obviously different types of Transcenders Runes. Alright, so the legendary Astral rune here, which is needed for crafting the 2% Earth Transcenders Rune, is actually 3.9.5 million, which is cheaper than 5 million. So in this situation, it is cheaper to craft the Transcenders Rune. There are different types of dream resources, different types of Astral runes, and obviously, you know, the cheaper the type of rune, the cheaper the type of Transcendence Rune can be crafted from it. So the legendary Astral rune one is the most expensive because it crafts the, you know, the best types of Transcendence Runes, which is all the 2% res ones. And then the second best is Marvelous, which crafts the weapon, the shield stats like range resist, range damage, spell damage, all that stuff. So those are the second most expensive. And then we go on to the third most expensive, which is Wonderful Astral Rune. And that's for the like 100 Vite, 12 pushback res, 8 pushback damage, 12 power, and so on. Yeah, so that's basically the two ways you can obtain Transcendence runes. I'm not going to be going into the specifics about Infinite Dreams, but basically when you beat a floor, you will get a box and you have a chance of getting a particular Astral rune. Obviously, the higher the more expensive the runes, such as the one that you need for 2% resistance runes, that's going to be a lower chance of dropping out of the box. But yeah. Alright, the next part of the video will be explaining to you the rules. The first rule is pretty simple, and it is basically you cannot use a Transcendence rune on any item that is currently overmaged or exomaged. And I hope you guys understand what that means, because it's quite self-explanatory. Overmage, doesn't matter how much the overmage is. It could be an item that is overmaged by 1 agility, or an item that's overmaged by I don't know, 5 vitality or something. Like any form of overmage, you cannot use a Transcendence rune on it because an error message will come up. You can also you cannot use a Transcendence rune on an exomaged item either. So for example, let's say I have a bow here that's 1% earth, and I wanted to use a 2% earth rune on this to get it to 3% earth. You can't do that. It's going to come up with an error message. The same goes for any type of exomage, such as a 1 MP exo or a 1 AP exo. You cannot use a Transcendence rune on any item that is exomaged. Alright, the next rule is that when you use any type of Transcendence rune on an item, it will become no longer mageable. So for example, this Hamature here, see how there's a status that says no future smith magic. And because of this, like after you add the Transcendence rune, you can't mage it anymore. You should try your best to get stats on the item that are perfect or extremely close to being perfect. As I did here, I got max damages, 80 strength, and the rest of the stats pretty decent. MP reduction is low, but I use that as a source of sync. Yeah, so try and get the stats near maximum or maximum before adding a Transcendence rune. Starlax Shield here, for example, I obtained these stats without an AP drop. It's basically perfect except for free dodge, and that in my opinion is satisfactory enough for me to add a 100 Vitality Transcendence rune. Okay, now the last part of the video will be explaining to you the chart, and as well as explaining to you the rune limits. So once again, this chart was made by Raden, but I've edited it a bit to change it into English so you can understand. Now, it's basically 2 columns. This is 1 column and this is 1 column. Let's focus on the first column first. So the name of the rune, read the name here and then read the Tra or Tra Pa or Tra Ra, and that'll get you the name of the rune in the market. So for example, we have Strength Int Cha Agi, and then we have Tra Ra, for example. So if we go to the market here, oh sorry, I already have a rune in my inventory, so let's use that one. So you will see Int Tra Ra rune. That is basically Int and then Tra Ra, and that rune gives 20 intelligence. And if we have Vitality here, it's basically Vi. Then you have Vi Tra or Vi Tra Pa or Vi Tra Ra. So that is basically that. Yeah, like I said, Vi Tra Pa, Vi Tra Ra. That'll help you find the runes in the market. Now, yeah, so that's basically the rule for all of them. Now, they have a standard rune, and then we have a Pa rune, and then we have a Ra rune. So as you know, the standard rune gives the least stat, and then the Pa gives a bit more, then the Tra gives the most. Now let me explain what these maximum limits are. So these are the limits of the stat of an item that allow you to add a particular Transcendence rune. So once again, let's use the Vitality one as an example here. because those are pretty common. So in order for the Tra rune to work, which is the standard rune, it gives 50 vitality. The item needs to have 301 vitality or less. If the item has more than 301 vitality, then the 50 vitality Transcenders rune will not work. And similar logic here, Tra Pa. If the item has 204 vitality or less, then the Tra Pa rune will work, 75 vitality. If it has more than 204 vitality, then the Tra Pa vitality rune will not work. And lastly, the Tra Ra, which is the 100 vitality rune. If the item has 105 vitality or less, then this rune will work. So more than 105 vitality, the rune will not work. It is very common to find the Tra Ra of Vitality Rune, which is the 100 Vitality Rune, on shields, because shields do not have any vitality at all. So if you Exo-Mage, now if you add a Transcenders Rune to an item that doesn't have the stat at all, so for example, you're adding a, let's say, a Power Rune to a bow, for example. So see how the, ignore the fact that it has 1% Earth Res, but just imagine that this was a standard bow. See how it doesn't have power? Then you can add the maximum power rune, which is the Pow Tra Ra. You can add this one to the bow and it'll work, because the limit of the bow, no, the limit of the Pow Tra Ra rune is 10. So if the item has more than 10 power, then you cannot add the Pow Tra Ra rune. But obviously the bow has no power at all. Secondly, so for example, a fire dial. So see how the fire dial has no vitality on it at all. That means if we add a 100 vitality Transcended Rune, it'll work automatically, because the limit for the 100 vitality Transcenders Rune, which is the Vi Tra Ra, is 105 vitality. But since the shield has no vitality at all, you know, it'll work. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You have Power Rune, you have the Resistance Runes here, which has a limit of 3. So usually when people mage, 2% resistance Transcendence Runes, then they use it as a form of Exo-Mage, like I did with my Hamacher. Because let's say I wanted to add a 2% air resistance rune, it wouldn't work because the item has 10% air resistance, and the limit for the 2% resistance rune is 3%. So if the item has more than 3% resistance, then you cannot use the 2% resistance rune on the item. An error message will come up. Now let's see, so for example, let's say a Voltage Finery. See how the max is 3% air? So it is possible to use the 2% air resistance Transcenders rune on this item, because the maximum is the maximum limit is 3% air, and this item has 3% air. So if you use the 2% air on this, it'll become 5% air, and then no longer mageable. Okay, what else do we have here? We have AP reduction, MP reduction, AP res, MP res, pod, do, which is short for dodge, lock, which is short for lock, and then Crit-Dar, which is crit damage, Pudar, push damage. Oh yeah, we also have the 5 elemental damages here. We have the heals one, which is SPE for some weird reason. I don't know why, but I thought it was heals, but then I looked at it and it was spare. So yeah, spare Tra, spare Tra Pa, spare Tra Ra, as you can see here. And then we have the Kree, which is short for crit, and then we have the shield stats, which is Dis-Dar, which is distance damage, also known as range damage, weapon damage, spell damage, close damage, which is close combat or melee damage, close res, which is close combat res or melee res, and then dis-res, which is distance resistance, which is range resistance. Okay, I'm actually going to try Transcenders Rune right now and show you what I mean. So what I have here is I'm in the shoe mage, and I have with me a Morello cherry boops, and you can see that the intelligence is 22 here. Now if we look back at the sync chart here, the limit for a Tra-Ra intelligence rune is 21 int. So I have a int Tra-Ra rune here, and if I add it, it will not work because the item is currently at 22 intelligence, and the limit is 21. So if I try and drop this down to 21, then it should work. Alright, so is that 21 now? So let's try this intelligence rune now. Yeah, as you can see. Yeah, so pretty much just follow the limit, in the chart. So obviously for intelligence Tra-Ra, it works at 21 and less intelligence, and same for the other elements. But then you have Vite that works at 105 and less, which is why before there was a video I made on Dragon Helmet, and I could not add a 100 Vitality Transcenders Rune to the Dragon Helmet. I ended up doing plus 75 because the limit for Vite Tra-Ra is 105 and the Dragon Helmet is 200. So 200 is less than 204, which is why the Tra-Pa works. Yeah, but obviously back at the time I didn't know about Vitality. I didn't know about any Transcendence Rune limits at all. I thought you could just add anything you wanted, but obviously that's not the case. I've had some customers come to me, for example. So let's say we have an unnameable boost here. They bought an unnameable boost that had 500 Vitality, and then they had a 100 Vitality Transcenders Rune, the Vi Tra-Ra rune, and then they told me to add the 100 Vitality to the boots, and they thought that you could get 600 Vitality on the boots. Well, no, that's not how it works, unfortunately. I wish it worked like that, because I'd be able to get like 5,000 HP, but that's not how it works. You need to follow this chart. The limit for the maximum amount of stat that the item has if you are attempting an overmage is basically shown here. So spell damage, Tra-Pa. If the item has more than 5 heals on it, more than 4 heals on it, you cannot use the spare Tra-Pa rune. Raden's head is covering this number, unfortunately, but I'm pretty sure it's a 2. It would make sense because it's 6, 4, then 2. Usually there's some sort of pattern that goes along. Usually the number is goes down in a common pattern. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this number is 2. So yeah, I'm gonna try something now. So I've got a spare Brucey ring here, which is currently at 6 MP parry, and I have a MP parry Tra-Pa rune. So let's check that out. MP res, yeah, Tra-Pa. So the limit here is 5 for the rune to work, but the MP parry here is 6. So if I add this on, it shouldn't work. Nah, there we go. If this MP parry was at 5, then this rune would work, as by the rule in the chart. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you have anything you want to ask about Transcendence Runes, let me know in the description box below, and I'll be sure to answer it. Once again, thanks to Raden for this chart. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next video.